Awesome. How is everybody doing? Woohoo! Love this. Love this crowd. This is intimate. This is exactly what we want. Good morning, the DAOist. Good morning. Good morning, GM. How's everyone doing? Good. I'm just gonna talk to you all because it's the homies. So, just speak up if you have anything. So, anyways, welcome to the talk. What I'm going to talk about today is empowering DAOs by empowering the DAO contributor. We're big believers here at Govern of how you can best empower a DAO by focusing on individual people rather than focusing on the behemoth or the monolith that is the DAO. So usually I like to wake up before these things, although with this group we're going to change it around a bit. Instead of playing a Live Alert Wake Enthusiastic, which is my go-to game, instead we're gonna learn a little bit about each other. So I know everyone kind of knows each other, but I want you to take 1 minute or 30 seconds, turn to your neighbors around you and say one fun fact about the other person that you did not know. What's one fun fact about yourself that the person around you does not know? Share those fun facts, 30 seconds, go. 15 more seconds to share fun facts. Last fun facts. Awesome. So now now that we've shared fun facts, I want to share those fun facts with everybody. So on the count of 3, I want everyone to yell the fun facts that they just learned out about each other, okay? Just yell them out so that we all can hear them. All right? 1, 2, 3. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad we're waking up. So who am I? I am Aaron. It's super nice to meet you all. I'm the founder of Govern. I've been a contributor to Metacartel and Raid Guild for some time. I was born in the Bay Area, but I grew up in Sacramento, California. I wanted to be an astronaut when I grew up, ended up here. In previous lives, I was a management consultant, I was a dairy farmer, and a production assistant. I love skiing, live music, and the San Francisco Giants. Got into blockchain about 5 or 6 years ago. And my fun fact, hot take, is I actually think ranch dressing is the best condiment. I literally would put ranch dressing on anything. I put it on tacos, I put it on pizza, I put it on waffles. It doesn't matter. Ranch dressing goes great. I highly recommend it. If you can get your hands on ranch dressing here, please let me know, because I am in a glut. Anyways, let's get into the meat and potatoes, if you will. Ranch dressing, also great on meat and potatoes. First off, why is Govern? We believe the power of the community is derived from the power of the people. This is cardinal importance to us. This is why we started Govern. We started Govern to make sure that we empowered the group by empowering the people. How is Govern? The next step, we empower the DAO by empowering the DAO contributors. This ensures that we're always reflecting the will of the people, right? So that's how. And finally, what? What is it Govern? What is it that we actually do? Okay? And at Govern, what we do is we help DAO contributors track, manage, and record their own DAO contributions so they can be more easily rewarded by the DAOs they work for. When we talk about DAO contributions, we mean things like, are you taking notes in a meeting? Are you leading the meeting? Are you tweeting about the DAO? Are you posting on Discourse? Are you posting on Discord? Are you onboarding new members? Are you contributing the documentation? Are you leading a new initiative? Are you making PR commits? Whatever it is that your contributions are, that is what the DAO is. The DAO is not your TVL. The DAO is not like memes. It is memes. But it is whatever your contribution is, right? So we think we can better describe DAOs if DAO contributors are empowered to track, record, and manage their DAO contributions, right? So that's what we are. Now let's get into what we're talking about today. We need to spend, my takeaway, what I want you to remember, if you remember nothing else, is this. We need to spend more time empowering each other. We need to spend more time empowering the DAO contributors. Not DAO core. Like, look around this room. When we think about empowering a DAO, these are the people that we should be empowering, like each other. And that's going to make a stronger DAO. So how are we going to get here? We have 3 things to talk about today. 1, healthy DAOs are controlled emergence. Healthy DAOs are controlled emergence. 2, treat your DAOs like a garden, okay? And 3, you gotta plant the grass. And by the end of this, I hope to not only convince you these 3 things, I'm gonna give you 5 tips on how to do it, okay? So let's start this journey together. First step, healthy DAOs are controlled emergence. What is controlled emergence? Emergence, in my opinion, is one of the greatest parts of DAOs. It's one of the greatest superpowers of DAOs. With things like controlled emergence, you get networks that look like this, right? Networks that are, wow, that's bright. Networks that are always kind of growing, that are influencing each other, right? The nodes are related to each other. There's no like aggregate, the only aggregate curve is the aggregation of all the nodes and how they relate to one another. What does this look like in the real world? It looks like this, a meandering river. If you all haven't read the Wikipedia page for meandering rivers, I highly recommend it because we can learn a lot about how to run DAOs. What a meandering river does is it's this like body of water where like as like all lakes and tributaries are, a flowing body of water, but it takes this like random course of action. And really how the path of these rivers end up becoming a thing is the individual water molecules start like creating erosion on different parts of the land as it proceeds. And it diverges and it converges. There's no consensus. There's no like every molecule in the river isn't like, let's go this direction. It's rather a molecule starts pushing in one direction and they start creating a little bit of space. And other molecules go, oh, that's sick. We're gonna follow this molecule and they're all gonna follow together and it's gonna create a new curve. And then the smaller molecules that are on the far side, they start picking up more speed. And now they're the ones with the most energy. And they get shot around and now they start hitting this side and it meanders back this way, right? The DAO is determined by all of these pieces working together. And this is really what it starts to look like. This comes from a tweet by over here if you wanna reference it, right? What does a company look like? A company is one directional. It's unidirectional with only one input coming from the top, right? What is an unhealthy DAO? And this is important. This is when you have no emergence. No emergence, bad. Okay, what's the other side of healthy, of constrained emergence? Unconstrained emergence. This is unconstrained emergence. We have all been in these DAOs. Everybody is going every single direction without any core, without any purpose, without any pruning. That's a problem because you get nowhere. And in fact, these, in my opinion, are worse than this because this leaves us exhausted, this leaves us burnt out, and it's extractive, right? What we want is something like this. A healthy DAO is a direction, which is the aggregation of all of these different pieces pointed towards a common direction, really? And so again, this is kind of what we're starting to work towards. And the cool thing is, as we think of the meandering river, as you create more constraint on this, it starts to change the direction of the curve over time, right? So how do we actually get to make sure we're doing healthy constraint emergence, right? And that gets me to our second point. We need to treat your DAOs like a garden. This is gonna require some audience participation, all right? But we wanna treat your DAOs like a garden. Who has ever planted a garden? Who has ever done gardening before? Yep. I have gardened before. I am very bad at it. I have killed more gardens than I have helped thrive. But how do you prune a garden, right? You prune a garden by you putting all your plants in. You kind of make a plan. I know I want a lawn. I like these colors. I'm going to put all of these pieces in, right? And then you start getting formulaic about it. Okay, I need to make sure that all of these different pieces have space to grow, right? And I'm going to cut here. I'm going to move over here. And what gets really cool as you do all of this, well, first off, what you simply don't do is cut the flowers, right? You simply don't just cut the flowers because then you're going to kill it. That's what a company does. It just kills it, right? So how can we do this in a healthy way where we're not killing the garden, but letting it grow organically? In DAOs, as like we are here because we believe in DAOs, we are DAOists, we help DAOs thrive. Each of our contributors are like their own plant. They are like their own flower. And we need to allow them to grow in ways that we never imagined possible, right? Because then you are like, you're like, when you get this going on, you planted a flower here, you planted a flower here. 5 months from now, all of a sudden those plants have intertwined in ways you never imagined. Somehow the neighbor's plant is super excited and pumped. They say what's going on and they've grown through the fence, right? And now they're growing with your flowers. This is the part of DAOs which are so crazy. So this is what we've seen so far, right? At Govern, we've been helping DAOs track, manage, record contributions, and then we've been giving tools to the DAO core, to DAO leaders, to the DAO members themselves to help prune the garden, okay? So it's using this gardening metaphor, but what is ways that we've seen people pruning their contribution gardens so far? And these are the top 3, okay? Elected leaders. This makes sense. We have a DAO. All of the DAO members are making contributions towards this given DAO. How this is shaped, we've elected a leader, and we're like, you are in charge of doing it together. And as long as you're pruning in a responsible way, we're going to keep you as the elected leader. Makes sense. Great place to start. Second one, consensus-driven via meetings. I actually really like this one. It's really hard to maintain, though. What this looks like is a ongoing meeting where every month everyone comes together and they review the contributions together and they say, we like these, we don't like these, right? We see a lot of communities pair Govern with Coordinate to try to do this in an epoch-based model, right? So people come together and have consensus driven on where they want to prune their contribution gardens via meetings. The third one, which I find to be fascinating, but it's actually really hard to do in a dynamic way, is predefined agreed types of flowers, aka contributions. We actually started here. This is where we started, is that DAOs got together and they're like, we think contribution A is valuable, B, C, D, E. This is where we want to start. But what we ended up seeing here is that it got too constrained, right? It didn't allow for that emergent property. That said, a lot of DAOs still use it, right? I get it, but that's the case. Questions to the crowd. What have you seen in your DAOs? I want you to think to the way that your DAO operates. In your DAO, when someone wants to make a contribution, how do you determine if this contribution is worth making? Like, people scream out, you know what I mean? Sub-DAOs are work streams, right? You've delegated, like as a smaller group, figure out what contributions are going to be helpful for one another. That's a great example. Other ways. Praise. Praise is a phenomenal way. We love praise. Praise is a great way of saying, hey, one off. That's like if everybody was a gardener, right? And I love it. We all get to say, this is great, this is great, this is great. Other ways that we've seen people prune their contribution gardens. Great, that's awesome. So really, we think a lot of these ways, except for like, I actually really like praise. Things like this is where a lot of the pruning mechanisms have gone. What we're excited about is to see more things like this, right? We think that this, and this is actually very similar to sub-DAOs as well. It's much more similar to praise. You have a bunch of people in there pruning the garden. Everybody is pruning the garden, right? Everybody is helping contributions work. Everybody is saying what is valuable and what isn't valuable. And we're creating this controlled emergence in a really cool way. As you know, though, it's really not that easy, right? This is like everybody in the DAOist right now. Like if you're in this building, this is us. And we all have to go to the washroom from time to time because the tears just like won't stop, right? We mask them with smiles. The best way I've found to help make this easier is using this mindset called planting the grass. We as DAO leaders have an insane amount of privilege and responsibility. We're given this chance to start leading like the next generation of movements, the next generation of organizations, the next generations of groupings of people. And that's sick. But it's really hard to do in a responsible way. How tightly should we be holding on to these organizations? One way that a good mental model I found to use is something that I call planting the grass. And there's an example I talk a lot about the best way to plant a sidewalk. In Michigan State, there was this architect who was commissioned to build a new library in Michigan State University. And he said that there's 2 ways we can figure out how to make the sidewalk for this library. The first way, and this makes a lot of sense, and this is where everyone starts. First way, You get everyone into a room. You get everyone into administration. We get together. We say, here's the sidewalk. Where do we want it to lead to? Cafeteria. That makes sense. Where else do we want it to lead to? Maybe the dorms. That makes sense. Cool. And they plan it out. They lay the sidewalk. They lay the cement. The second way is to follow the grass, and this is what they actually did. They went and they built the library. And then what they did is they planted grass all around the library. And for 1 year, they said, we're just going to let people walk. No sidewalks. We're going to get in, we're going to build the building, and let people walk. And after 1 year, we're going to go back and see where all of the dead grass is. We're going to see where all of the grass has been indented. Because that's the paths that people are taking. That's the paths that have emerged. And what you get is a way more beautiful garden of things. Things you didn't even realize were possible. You're building hangout areas around the library because you realize there's like a park that like once you go to the library, you find a good book with your friends and you just leave the library and you sit down. And so all of a sudden we're building benches over here for people to sit. You would have never thought of that. You build up elevated sidewalk. This is what they did. They built an elevated sidewalk structure to make it easier because people liked the grass, right? So you can follow the grass. And that this, I was supposed to put a picture of grass here, sorry. But this is how we should be thinking about DAOs, right? This is how we should think about pruning our DAOs. What mechanisms can we do as DAO leaders? What mechanisms can we do as DAO core members to plant grass around our community to survive, to thrive? Because this is the true power of DAOs, the work that contributors do. It's not about us. It's about all of us. It's about everybody else. And it's about empowering them to be the best versions of themselves that they can be. DAOs should be guided by their contributors, not by us. That's the only way that we get controlled emergence, right? So the first step that we've done at Govern is actually try to figure out how to best plant this grass, right? And so what we do right now, oh man, this is bright. We're getting away from those, sorry. That was the product, that's too white. But what we allow people to do is actually go in and record the contributions they're doing and push them to the actual DAO. To say, this is the contribution I've made. This is my step in the grass. Here I go, DAO. What do you think? And people can come in and use things like praise to say, yes, or sub-DAOs to say, yes, this is a good contribution. Let's lay some cement here so that people know this is the right path to walk. And we can grow these contributions together to actually build a contribution tree. The next stage is actually dynamic cement pouring, where today it's poured here, but tomorrow it actually needs to be poured there. Shout out to Christine, who's going to be talking about dynamic governance systems tomorrow at Shelling Point, the Radical Exchange Tent. Make sure you check it out. But as I start to wrap up here, I'm going to give you Aaron's 5 tips to plant the grass and empower the DAO contributors. These are 5, like I get it. Aaron, planting the grass sounds so great in theory. Like what does that actually mean? Great question. These are the 5 things you can do to start, and they're really easy. The first one, start with a README and contributing guidelines. If your DAO doesn't have a README talking about the North Star, if your DAO doesn't have guidelines saying how someone can contribute, you've already lost, right? You already are in unconstrained or no emergence properties. That's just like, how is anyone going to know what to do? First step, start with a README, start with contributing guidelines. Second thing, ask not what your friends can do for you, ask what you can do for your friends. This is single-handedly the easiest way. Go to spend less time, thinking of your own proposals to make. Spend more time on coffee chats. Spend more time on virtual meetups. Spend more time showing up and saying, hey, Shannon, what have you been thinking about doing? How can I help this, right? Let's encourage other plants to be growing around each other. 3, choose tools that empower contributors. We need some top-down project management tools. Like Kanbans are useful, yes, 100%. But we need to also choose more tools that empower anybody to be making contributions, permissionless contributions. This is the difference between a closed source methodology and an open source methodology. Closed source limits, open source encourages. Choose tools that empower contributors. 4, do seasonal reviews on how you're pruning your DAOs. This is the most important piece and requires you to think in a long-term mindset. Once a quarter, get everyone together and talk about not just the contributions, talk about how you're pruning your contributions. How are you deciding? Are you still doing the right way? 5th one, and this is what I'd love to see more of, empower new cohorts. We do a really good job of bringing people in. We do a really bad job of giving them the keys to the castle. Like, I want to see a DAO bring in a new cohort and be like, for the next month, you all get to run the DAO. Like, we don't care what the older people say. Like, you 20 rookies, go do something crazy. Because they're going to do some shit that you've never even thought about, and it's going to be effing wild. And you're going to be building, and like, when you empower people to do things like that, that's how we get to these meandering rivers, right? That's how we get to really unique and beautiful like bodies of water that we've never been able to anticipate, right? It's by giving up control. We need to give up more control by creating frameworks for people to thrive, for our flowers to thrive. And so that's what I want you to remember, right? If you remember nothing else, remember these 3 things. I want you to remember to plant the grass, prune the trees, and prune the flowers, and empower the DAO contributors, right? Empower each other. If this is something that you want to do, we're trying to learn right now more pruning techniques, right? So we want you to come join the DAO contributor movement. Come find me. We're giving a lot of demos right now, and we're like testing out some upcoming features. More so, like, I want to know more ideas on how to prune. Like, I don't think we've even scratched the surface on good ways to prune contribution trees, on good ways to run DAOs. And these are the conversations. We are here for these conversations. So come find me, come find us. And if you're interested in learning more, come check out Govern. We are Govern. Thank you all. This was such a pleasure talking to you all. And have a great DevCon. Have a great DAOist, everyone.